that insight and staying with us throughout this topic. Now we move on and we stay in the Middle East. Syrian President Ahmed Al-Sharaa will meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow, marking his first visit to Russia. The two leaders will discuss regional and international developments and ways that Syria and Russia can cooperate. According to the Syrian government, Sharaa would visit Russia despite the postponement of an Arab summit that he had planned to attend. Sharaa is set to hold talks on the continued presence of Russia's naval base in Tartus and its airbase in Hmeimim. He will also formally request the handover of Bashar Al-Assad, a Russian ally, for the trials over alleged crimes against Syrians. Russia has attempted to preserve ties with Syria's new authorities, including the offering of Damascus for diplomatic support over Israeli strikes on Syrian territory. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Mohammad Khatibi. He's a Middle East expert, joins us live from Tehran. Thank you very much, Mohammad, for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World. Thank you. Now, how do you view the growing alliance between Syria and Russia, particularly in terms of military cooperation with Russia's naval base in some states in Syria, and what implication do you think that could have for Israel?
So before the fall of Assad regime had very good relations with Russia, and there were naval bases by Russia there. And after fall of Assad, the Al-Sharaa government kept the promises that Assad was doing with Russia, and now we are seeing that their relation is growing because Syria needs Russian help to counter Israeli threats against its sovereignty. And also, there are many players in Syria that align with Russia, and the Syrian government, the current government, needs to address those groups. For example, in Alawites in Syria are more aligned with Russia, and to keep control on them, the Syrian government should be cooperating with Russia. Also, the government is eager to diversify its alliances. So it's not just the US that it wants to grow, and it wants to be normalized as a country. For example, it may resume ties with Iran, which this government is very keen to push the aligned groups out of Syria, but it is now trying to help people in Syria and is trying to continue what is left of Assad regime.
And also, given the Syria has formally requested the handover of Bashar al-Assad for trial over also alleged crimes, how do you think Sharaa moving forward will be talking, or what will be in the table for these discussions in the upcoming Putin and his summit?
I don't think that Russia will hand over Bashar al-Assad. There was a report about assassinating him, but I think he is still alive, Bashar al-Assad, I mean, and Russia has good relations with him, and it will continue to be so. There will be talks on return, but I don't think that Russia is willing to hand over Assad to the current government. So moving forward, the Syrian government wants to normalize with all its neighbors, including Israel. So this is not a case with Iran right now, but eventually it will normalize relations with Iran also, because the government wants peace, as been seen, and it has changed course during these months. But we should not forget that this government was formed from extremists and Al-Qaeda members, Bashar was a Al-Qaeda leader, and then he changed course and started to be more pragmatic and is trying to push out the extremist groups in his government to a side and be a normal country. But I don't think that this will happen in short term. There are other important issues. For example, Israel is continuing to attack Syrian sovereign territory over different issues like the Druze community in Syria, and that is a really big problem for Syria because it wants to retain its sovereign territory, and Russia can help Syria to retain sovereign territory and counterbalance Israel. Syria has good relations with Turkey also, and I think the Russian help will counter Israel and help the whole government in Syria to fight back against Israeli territorial claims.
And lastly, with President Al-Sharaa's visit marking his first trip to Russia, what do you think are the potential effects of this increased cooperation between Syria and Russia on the broader Middle Eastern landscape?
So I think that the Bashar government wants to normalize with its neighbors, including Iran, and I think this is a good step forward for Bashar government to normalize with Iran. I think the relations with Iran will also be on the table because Israel is attacking Syria, and Syria wants to counter the threats by Israel, and this will help, and this will also help the people in Syria, which have suffered years of civil war, and now there is a very big divide in Syrian society among the Kurds, among the Arabs, and among the Alawites, because they are now cooperating with each other, but there is a big divide.
Sorry, we seem to have lost our guest here, but thank you very much, Mohammed, for joining us all the way from Tehran and sharing that insight.